There you go.
There comes a time in every podcast's life when you have to look backwards and not forwards. Today we are doing a kind of comments show because we promised you we would talk about your comments and your interaction with it. But also what we're going to do is make it us looking back, involving what you say about the body of work that we've done so far. Lee has made a spreadsheet of things, of information, so he's in the chair today. I am merely a bystander who will probably talk too much. Good morning.
Morning.
How do we start this then?
At the beginning.
At the beginning, where all good stories start.
Absolutely. So, beginning. Show number 1.
George.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
2. So, I'll just start reading some comments out. I guess this is from Sister Moon 1970.
Right.
Hi, Jim George. Good show, kept me engaged. I'm sure everybody suffers imposter syndrome in one form or another. I have it all the time with my art and I block myself all the time. I like hearing of different coping mechanisms.
Yeah,
Excellent.
perfect.
At the moment, I cope by just not doing it. But there is something bubbling inside that wants to create. So I need to break through that barrier. Good luck with the show. Got a few male friends that I know would enjoy and will share this with them. And I think they will relate. Peace and respect. So, obviously, I wasn't around for that show.
No.
And I think everybody does suffer with that problem.
There's the mental health issue of imposter syndrome, which goes really further, where it affects everything, where you take on a persona, then you don't believe in that persona, and then, it all falls apart. Imposter syndrome on a societal level is, like George said, why are you coming to me for photographs? What? Oh, crap, I'm a photographer. Why are you coming to me for a table? Oh, because you make tables. Do you know what I mean?
Because I don't think I suffer from that, but I do suffer from self-doubt. So what's the difference between imposter syndrome and just not having enough confidence?
I suppose if you haven't got confidence, then basically you're thinking of ways around it, you're thinking of ways to do things, and you'll make it work. You'll make it work, but you're not sure. So normally then what you do is you reach out for help to somebody else. Imposter syndrome is, Jesus Christ, I'm in this situation, I've got to do it. And I haven't got the skill set, I haven't got the talent level. It's a blurred line between the two. But imposter syndrome is having no understanding in that split second why these people are asking you to do what they're asking you to do. And normally it's because you care so much about what you do.
Yeah.
And you want it to be amazing that maybe, self-doubt is an element of it, of course. You don't believe necessarily that you can do what you do. When I first started Metal Machine, right, I used to, like Rick will tell you, when we were delivering stuff, I used to almost be physically sick. Going in reaction to what the customer will think. Well, the customer knows what they're getting, they've asked for it.
Yeah.
There is no surprise here. Even when I deliver stuff to you, I was like, oh my God, I arrive with dry gob. I'm always drinking something because, I'm diabetic, so I'm thirsty all the time anyway. But it affected me that much because I suddenly thought, Jesus Christ, they're going to look at this and think it's rubbish. They're going to realise that I can't do what I do. Mad, isn't it?
It is a bit mad.
Considering half your house has my name written on it.
It's very true. It's very true.
Oh, that's a good call.
Okay. Let's move forwards a little bit.
Just before we do, right? Sister Moon, I know, right? So I know who that is.
Okay.
She started doing little bits on YouTube, as well, and breaking through. She's had a hard life. She's had some serious bereavements and had to take over leading roles in other people's lives. So I'm not going to give you advice, Donna, but you're doing the right thing. Do what you do, break through. Also, don't stop yourself from doing anything. If you make something, if it's a video, or if it's painting, or if it's music, the only thing you have to remember is make it for you, don't make it for an audience, and then it's real and truthful.
Yeah, I think that applies to lots of things, doesn't it? Don't do stuff to satisfy other people. Is a big thing.
Simply because then that takes all anxiety away from it, because you're not confronted by the thoughts and worries of other people. You're just about your own worries.
Yes, as many people say, other people's opinion of you is none
Doesn't
of your
matter.
business.
Yeah, it's none of your business. That's good, isn't it?
Easy to say, not so easy to do. But,
yes.
But yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're a neurotic mess like me.
Right, show 3. Quite a few comments on show 3. That was about your journey with sertraline and all of that stuff.
Right, so little update on sertraline. I'm still on 150 milligrams. It takes away your ability to give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a bit too much, but when you recognise that, you can dial yourself back. That's an update on that. That's where I'm at the moment. So what was said?
Okay, quite a few different comments. Firstly, good to see somebody who would generally be seen to the general public as bulletproof. I think that's you.
Mm-hmm.
Admitting he needs help, which again is another one of the undercurrents of our show, isn't it? Also hearing Lee's story of his father, which provides a different view and experience of this often taboo topic. I hope that Jim finds a way through this. Also very valid points made about listening and not making it about you, which is something we cover an awful lot as well. And don't ask someone if they're okay if you're not willing to listen to the answer, which I think is...
There's a lot of people... Right, so every time I see George, right, in the morning, I go, all right, mate, you're okay? And I'm waiting to see if he is okay, because he's my friend, right?
Yeah.
Other people... come up, shake you in the hand and go, all right, how you doing? Are you okay? And then they just walk away.
Yeah.
Because it's a greeting.
Yeah, it's become, at work, it has become quite common these days for the first thing after, hi, whatever, hope you're okay, straight on to the next.
Yeah. Hope you're okay. Something to say, don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
And where's my blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that thing where and I guess we've possibly even gone beyond this now, where people say, ask someone if they're okay, but are you okay? That's become a little bit of a sort of cliche.
The trouble with...
But it's not about asking twice, it's about asking and meaning it and wanting to know what the answer is. And
as a human being in society, how do you know, though, when someone's asking you for real? Because the propensity is, right, to say, I'm fine.
It is, yeah.
And when you're not inside, you're dying, you feel like shit, you can't make a decision about something, your life's in the toilet, or you feel amazing, you've just like got your job, your life, doing all that. Both of these things, be they sad or happy, are not things you actually talk about when someone asks you if you're okay.
Yeah, so therefore...
it's meaninless.
So therefore it's so your responsibility, not really, I guess, if you're interested... is say, okay, tell me more about that.
Well, that's why I'm cognizant, because George is. I'm pointing at George, who is there. So when George is easy to talk to because we know each other very well, and if there is something wrong, he knows that I will listen, and vice versa, right? Mm-hmm. Same with you, right? With me, whoever normally it is, I will just be guarded, unless it's you two, unless it's or my wife or whatever. Even with my wife a little bit, because she goes through a lot. She's a veterinary nurse. She's not very well at the moment, so she's like, it's hard work. So you don't want to go, do you know what, my life's a shit on top of her. Yeah. So you have to be cognizant of what they are doing, the other person, right? You can tell from their demeanour that if they want to talk or not as well, because they'll be like, yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah,
and then you know that they're not. Yeah. So you go, okay, do you want to talk? Don't force anyone into it. If they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to talk.
Yeah, do you want to talk? Is a good question, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you want to talk? And then they go, oh, well, you won't have time. And then you go, no, there are no barriers.
I can make time,
you know. I think barriers is a big problem with that.
Yeah.
So what was said?
A comment, and this is, I'm not going to do too many of these comments, but just a comment from Ian, and I'm mentioning this because he is one of a small band of our Patreon members. So thank you for that. I've watched the full podcast, outstanding. You both talk brilliantly. Thank you very much. Open, honest, candid, with a bit of humour thrown in too. Well done again. I'm sure your podcast will help so many people and make them realise they are not alone. Which, the reason I've said that is that somebody said to me the other day, so what do you want to get out of the podcast then? And I said, it's good. It's a good question. You know, we'd like it to have a wider audience. We'd like it to expand. But I'm not sure exactly where we want it to go. But always come back to this thing of, well, we get between 100 and 400 views. If that means on any episode, one person is helped by that, purely by giving them something to do, making them feel happier, making them think about something differently, and that's all we really want, isn't it? But I guess through all of that, I think we are helping people. I hope we are.
I'll be honest, I have no idea whether we're helping people. But there are two things to realise. When you do a show like this, right, if it's boring, and people can't relate to you because you're full of shit and you talk about, all the little stories in your life that aren't true, the one thing I said to you guys at the beginning of this was it has to be based in truth. All my life has been grey, lies, different diversions. My life now is totally based on truth. I don't lie to anybody. I don't lie to my wife. I don't lie to you. I don't lie to you. I don't lie to anyone. Because if I do, I feel I am reverting back to the gangsterism of my former life, where I had to look over my shoulder and remember what lies I told. You've got to be really clever to be a liar. Because you've got to remember every conversation you've had with everyone. How exhausting is that?
Yeah, God, yeah.
Also, it being entertaining is important. Because people need to be entertained. Now, entertainment. We were talking about this before we went on air with religion and all of that.
Yeah.
We'll touch on that later. But, back when there was no television or radio or anything entertaining apart from the local pisshead who was living in a muddy gutter, everyone would go to church to hear the stories. Because even whether it was about religion or whatever, and through that, the social control messages were broadcast. But also the church would give you payments, if they were poor enough. So look, entertainment is a fundamental part of us. That's why all of these musicians exist in the world.
Yeah.
All of these actors, all of these plays that are put on, Shakespeare still being done now.
Yeah.
So all I want to achieve is two things. One, be entertaining. And two, help just by being relatable.
Yeah.
Because I am a real person. And I do have daily struggles.
Yeah.
I'm not, beaten down by it, but I had to start taking a substance, which is mind-blowing considering I was a substance abuser.
Yeah, that's always going to have been a challenge, isn't it, for you, I think. Is that sort of reliance on it. Why is that different to an addiction? Well, I appreciate addiction is physical, but depending on something, whether it's a physical addiction or whether it's just for the benefit it gives you, is that a challenge still? Is that?
Do you know what the challenge goes the other way? The challenge goes that you don't give a crap about anything. So your anxiety is removed. Right, okay, so backtrack. My anxiety was palpable. I would wake up in the morning with the fear, usually between 3 and 5 a.m. I would feel sick to the point where by the time the sun came up, my son had gone downstairs, my wife had got up or whatever, I had to go and throw up. Right, that's how bad it got. But it was all stuff in my mind, rumination, things from my past. Things, debt and stuff like that, which I'll tell you now, right? If you're in debt, go and talk to a debt management solution company because you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. You just don't, right? Those are the normal things. So debt, relationships, things that aren't going right in your life. If you have all of these things, they can overtake you. And if you don't communicate it to somebody, believe me, it doesn't go away.
Absolutely. I mean, that we don't necessarily have to do these in order, do we? Despite the fact that I'm slightly OCD about that stuff. But exactly, come on to the Joe, the suicide show.
Yeah.
That sort of segues very nicely into that, and I'll come back to some of these comments in a sec.
Yeah.
About just life becoming overwhelming. That point of not being able to cope anymore. It's not about mental illness. It's about just too much going on and not being able to cope, and that's.
Everyone has a saturation point.
Yeah.
And that saturation point is their upper limit. Some people never find their upper limit. Because some people aren't challenged by life.
Yeah.
Right? Now, everyone goes, oh, he's just in the middle lane. He's done the same job his whole life, married, 1 kid, 2 kids, whatever. Why are you being disparaging about that?
Yeah.
Because that's his life. He's happy. He's a winner. He's the one that doesn't wake up and go, fucking hell, what do I do now?
Yeah.
He's the one that isn't sitting with a fucking heroin needle in his arm.
Yeah.
He's the one that gets up every morning, is content. He'll have rows with his missus because she's got the wrong curlers in her hair or whatever, all of that. Or she's bought the wrong brand of beans. Or he, because men do shopping too, bought unsalted bacon.
outrageous.
I mean unsmoked bacon.
Unsmoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. But look, when you look at other people's lives, maybe stop judging people for good or bad. Because also social media has made it such that you believe these people are in nirvana. They have found life to be euphoric every day. Their children are perfect. Their husbands are the love of their lives. When the camera turns off, the husband is off fucking his secretary. The kid is drawn all over the wall, yeah, and is really grumpy and has behavioural issues that he can't fathom himself.
Yeah.
But in front of that camera, everything is perfect.
Yeah.
And people feel like they can't tell the truth. So if nothing else, this show is about the truth of life.
Yeah. Well, here's a very, very open response to the antidepressants thing from Hannah. Hannah's commented on lots of the shows, one of our biggest fans, I would say. It's taken me years of trying various antidepressants, citalopram, sertraline, etc., to find the ones that work for me. I'm on metazapine now, as they work like a sleeping pill too. The detox of one to try another is horrible, but trial and error is the way the NHS seems to work. And that was definitely my experience with my dad, is that they would try different stuff. And when they took him off the lithium, which they tried various times because it was ultimately going to kill him, which it kind of did in the end.
Yeah.
They would try multiple things, but he would only ever seem to get the benefit out of lithium. So we would always come back to that. So that's pretty.
The Rob Clydesdale show.
Yeah.
Rob, he as he said, he's tried everything.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, things work for a while and then don't, because you've got to remember that there is a top level to sertraline, which is 150 milligrams. Right, I'm at that.
Yeah.
So if I decline, there is no upping the dose. You're already on it. So then they'll have to add something else, and I'm not going to go down that route.
No, and that's where my my sort of problem with it all is really, is that we know they don't fix the problem, they only mask the problem, and we know it's only supposed to be short term.
Yeah.
But people end up on it for years and years and years, don't they? And that's the problem I have with it. I don't take over-the-counter medicine most of the time anyway. But I never did drugs. You know, I don't like putting chemicals in my body really. And that's when I'm not saying people shouldn't take them. Obviously, they have
their own choice
benefits to it. But that's.
Yep.
I read a book recently, like I do a lot at the moment, about the causes of mental health illness, and the conclusion of that book was that it is largely your circumstances, whether that's childhood experiences, whether it's the pressure of life, whatever it is.
Yep.
And talking about it is proven to be as much help as some form of medication, but you've got to be talking to the right person, and they've got to be listening and not telling you their story and all of that stuff. So
let's clarify that once and for all, right? When you listen to someone, right, and be honest with yourself, all of you, right? Last time we had a conversation and you were listening to somebody, did you then refer it to yourself, right? So I used to be terrible for this. My wife said she'll tell you, right? Yeah. We're talking about something and I go, oh yeah, well, when that happened to me, it was blah, blah, right? In that moment, that woman across from me shut off. Yeah. Because there's no point in communicating, because I have changed it from about her to about me. Okay? And I'll freely admit that. These days, I have learned to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but you have to learn it, don't you? I mean,
it's learnt behaviour.
I had a conversation last night with Nikki, and I'm sitting there consciously going, yeah, no, don't say that. Don't say yeah, but don't. And you really have to work hard to not. It's such a natural thing to say, you know, no, you're wrong. You're wrong to think like that, or you shouldn't be feeling like that, or then
you can't tell someone how to think or how to feel, because they do that without your influence. Yeah. So you're in a position, right, just to be a sponge for the information they need to get out, right? And talking therapy, when you're sat in a room with a group or with one person, it's been proved to be the most effective way of dealing with the everyday things that develop into mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Right, anxiety, depression, all of that. I mean, you and I weirdly are both doing the same course of counselling. which is odd. We didn't do that as a thing. We just did it separately. But that teaches you, the 9 fundamentals of blah, blah, which I can't remember any of them. But that's fine.
Unconditional positive
Apart
regard and all that.
Congruence.
Congruence, what a great word. Yeah.
Lovely. But if you're sat at home and your significant other or your child comes to you to talk about a situation, instead of trying to relate to them, just listen. Right? If you pass a comment, make sure the comment is like, okay, is there more to that?
Yeah.
How do you feel? Because open questioning is the key, right? So don't refer it back to yourself. Don't relate. Don't say, well, in 1986 when I was blah, blah, I did the same thing and it did this. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously, conversations when you're in the bozo and you're going, oh, yeah, I did that, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
When somebody comes to you to talk, a lot of people don't notice this. Some people come to you to talk to test the ground to see if they can talk to you. Okay? So when you have a conversation with whoever, just stand back and listen intently to what they're saying. Because if you are involved, right, eye contact, show that you're interested in what they've got to say. And it's not as easy as you might think.
No, it really does take work.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to mention this one. Show 4, Chris Love, talking about his work in addiction therapy. Just the middle of the comment says, Chris is easy to listen to. I've found that. I just was totally, some people you could just listen to all day, couldn't you? He could be a voiceover artist, Chris. I was just engaged with pretty much whatever he was saying.
I've known Chris for years.
Yeah.
But our interactions have always been quite minimal.
Yeah.
But when he told me he was first clean and did all that, he reappeared after that. I was really, really pleased for him, and I have no idea why. Do you know what I mean? I've genuinely felt, oh, that's amazing. And also, when I speak to Chris now, which happens every so often, he is engaging, he's interesting, he's lived a life that lots wouldn't have been able to come through. He's married to a beautiful woman, beautiful kids. They've merged families, and it's a great situation. He still has to fight his demons. He still has things in his life he has to deal with. But when you talk to Chris, you care about him.
Yeah, and I don't, and I got that as well. I've never met the guy, but yeah, some people, there's just an air about them, and I can imagine. Well, maybe I can't imagine because I've never been an addict, but I can imagine sitting across from him when you're struggling in any shape or form. He's going to be a comforting kind of guy, isn't he?
Yeah, but also you see, it's the same thing, isn't it? When you know someone's maybe not walked in your shoes, walked in a bigger set of hobnail boots in his case.
God, yeah.
He's been through it. But he's come out the other side and gone into self-education, gone into really pushing himself. Yeah. He was a car salesman, top end cars, and that went horribly wrong. And then next thing I know, he's involved in this addiction therapy stuff because he's got enough time on his chip.
Yeah, and I've again, coming from someone that hasn't had a drug background, talking to you, talking to Sean, talking to Chris, talking to Steve. I think that's probably all the drug-related people we've spoken to. You're just the total opposite of what, as a youngster, I would have thought drug addicts were like. Is the stories that we had with Steve about I can't remember if it was actually on the recording or the conversation prior, but that being in a crack house kind of thing, and that image you get from watching Breaking Bad or whatever, as people like me, is the only experience we've got of that stuff. I wouldn't have ever said any of the guys I've just mentioned were remotely like that. Obviously not now, but you just, you seem far more rounded people than a lot of the people I know that have never done drugs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Without romanticising anything or without glamorising that life, what happened was we hit a point, all of us, where we were going to die.
Yeah.
Or we weren't.
Yeah.
And confronting death is sobering. And when you're truly clear of the substance, then you have to have something to replace that.
Yeah.
Now, be that food, be that sex, be that gambling, be that knowledge.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have gone through all the other stuff, and now, you know, it genuinely means a lot to me to be learning things, to be understanding the human condition, to know that one day I might be able to sit in front of a person and help them for real, face to face. I never did the 12 steps. I fought against it.
Yeah.
Because I'm slightly horrified by sitting in front of a group of people and telling them, bearing my soul, because I might be judged. And that's ridiculous, because who gives a fuck who judges me? So I still care about that. But the more I talk to Laura Drain, the more I talk to, you know, other people in the society that I'm moving in now, you know, therapists and charities and all of that, you know, I see that, you know, it's got to be a personal growth thing, because if you don't grow, you might as well have just succumbed to the heroin.
Yeah.
Which is all a bit serious, but it's true.
Yeah.
You know, everyone, you know, you glamorise that. You know, the glamorous one is always the drug addict that's on the fine line between a hopeless addict and a rock star. Or, you know, you'll find that the most creative people usually are so damaged that they have to take drugs just to bloody get up in the morning. You know, that's the trouble. And, you know, I always wanted to be a rock star. I always wanted to be a musician. Basically, I'm a show-off, right? And sometimes I'm good at it. But sometimes my crisis of self-faith or, you know, self-courage or self-belief, self-esteem is so low that I can't do it. But this podcasting thing, love it.
Yeah.
Because the only audience usually is George or you and a guest. And also I get so lost in these guests. You know, we talk about things and what a couple of my friends on the side have said, you don't see, and you've said this to me, you don't see things the normal way. You see things from a different tangent. And then that spurns conversation, because it's not a prescribed response question.
No, exactly. Well, even these conversations, you said you didn't want to know what they were. Because
I didn't want to know, so I can react.
Exactly.
And it's truthful.
Exactly. Right, show 5, Rob Clydesdale. For me, there were no comments on this, but I wanted to mention this one, because for me, this show turned into something that I don't think we were expecting it to. And for me, that was Rob talking about having a trans child.
Yep.
And the reason I want to mention it, Rob, specifically for you, is that as a result of having that show, I was able to help someone else. Right. Because a good friend of ours, their child was going through doubt as to whether they wanted to transition, and were having suicidal thoughts because of it, because they didn't want to be the person they were. And they're okay at the moment. They're still going to struggle, I think, for some time, and I think the parents are still going to struggle for some time over whatever decision gets made, because I don't think a decision has been made. But I was able to help that person by signposting them towards a couple of organisations that Rob had suggested. And if I hadn't had that conversation with Rob, or we hadn't had that conversation with him, I wouldn't have had any idea how to help that person. And therefore, who knows what might have happened, you know. Yeah.
Right, in a very real sense, the truthful conversations had about that then put you in a position of enablement. You know, you could signpost an actual way forward, which they didn't have, because who the fuck would have that if they had no knowledge of it?
And I think we, our generation, really struggle with that topic, because it's alien.
At first, you struggle against it, and you go, well, if you're a man, blah blah blah, and it's true. You know, the whole public toilet thing and J.K. Rowling and all that. I mean, you know, there are some men who would turn around and say, I identify as a woman, to go into women's toilets. There are some men who would do that, right? I'll tell you that now, right? But it doesn't paint everyone. You see, everyone wants to make these gross generalisations about everything. Yeah? Every single person is different. Every single person has a different perception of what they are and who they are. So, you know, if that comes to it and you have no frame of reference, it's amazing that this show, if nothing else, you've been enabled to signpost them to the right thing. I love Rob. I've always loved Rob. He's an amazing human being, and he has no understanding of his abilities. He just fucking doesn't. Also, if you want to hear something good, right, that he worked on with me, obviously watch the show. Which show is it? Season 1 what?
Oh, it's a new page now. It's season 1, show 5.
Right, season 1, show 5. Watch the show. Rob's an amazing guy. He's worked with Bowie. He's done all of these different things. Right. Also, he is the most genuine, real human being that I know, I think. He helped me when I was homeless and sick, and then I was housed, and he gave me furniture because I didn't have anything. You know, people like that are rare. But also, he will tell you himself, he has the worst of demons. Sometimes life, he can't cope with that. Yeah. You know, and he is an amazingly creative, an amazingly gifted human being. But he doesn't see that necessarily all the time, which is why he struggles for him. You know, it's all a bit pointless.
Yeah. Okay, the Suicide Show. Joe, paddling paramedic. I still think if ever I want to tell anyone about the podcast, and they say, so what's it all about then? I say, well, you know, it all came about because Jim was turning 50, and it was about, you know, that sort of crisis of that realisation and coping mechanisms and stuff. I say, if you want to watch the hardest hitting show, it's that one. And the comments support that. You know, wow, mind blown. Dark story with a very positive, hopeful, uplifting theme. Just incredible, mind blown. It made me realise just how precious life is. And so on and so on. The comments come out. Jem Garve has posted, I can relate to this episode a lot more than I wish I could. I contemplated taking my own life this year. And just like Joe said, it was nothing to do with my mental health, but was fuelled by an external event. I mean, I'm getting quite emotional just reading that, really. I count myself incredibly lucky that I had the opportunity, I had the support of family, friends, and 2 life-saving charities to stop me from actioning on my plan. I mean, that's incredible.
It is incredible. Also, there are some key things to be taken from that. Suicide is not always a mental health issue, okay? Suicide is a way out to stop the pain of a situation.
Yep.
Also, it's interesting that they use the word plan, because very rarely, surprisingly, is it a spontaneous act.
Yeah.
There are cases, you know, people will argue, yeah, but they just went to the beach and jumped off and blah, blah. No, they didn't.
No.
They thought for months or weeks, whatever, about what to do, how to do it. They'll also have gone through every scenario. Right, what happens if I bounce on top of a truck and I don't die, but I'm injured? What if I hit a car? And to think, all of the possibilities go through their minds. And that sense of peace that they get once they've made the decision. Right, trans people, the sense of peace they get when that decision's made and they action it.
Yeah.
Anyone in life who is lost, that decision making is key to finding some kind of peace. Sadly, a decision to kill yourself is very final. And also, the other thing is, I think we said this with Steve in the last show, is like a cry for help is a cry for help. People just dismiss it. Oh, well, they cut their wrists across, they didn't go upwards, so it wasn't going to happen. Mate, they sat in a bathtub and cut their fucking wrists.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known that it'd be more effective to cut it that way, to be honest, if I was going to be doing it. So that's a bit of an assumption, isn't it?
Okay, well...
but yeah, I understand the physics of it.
Yeah, so you go up with the artery and it opens it and it's less painful because you go across, you're cutting through nerves.
Yeah.
There you go. I know all about that.
But yeah, but that's that sense of peace and that sense of calm that Joe mentioned. I'd never contemplated that before. But that was echoed when on the Chris Sibley show, because he said his son actually walked a friend home. He was going to do the deed, walked a friend home.
Yeah.
And then went back to the train station and then.
Yeah, but then saw the woman on crutches.
That's what I mean.
Oh yeah. I mean.
So he had the plan.
He had the plan,
and then he thought, I'll just do one more.
I'll do a good thing.
Deed before I actually action.
Went round to all of his friends to say goodbye without saying goodbye.
Mental.
And that takes a presence of mind, man. And also appeared happy, jovial, the whole thing.
Yeah, because that calm was there.
Chris Sibley, I respect him immensely. We still talk from time to time. This is one thing I'd like to say as well, is I've met some amazing people on this show, right? A lot of the guests I know anyway. But, you know, you've got Joe, the paddling paramedic.
That's the one.
Say that when you've had this much coffee. I speak to Joe once a week, at least.
Yeah.
Dave Beer, Walking with the Wounded. I literally had a massive conversation with him yesterday. Chris Sibley, you know, he texts me from time to time, you know, saying, I'm doing this, how's it going? And he said, look, when are you at your shop? I'll come and have some coffee, you know, all of that. Yeah. And that's beautiful because I'm making relationships with people that, you know, I wouldn't meet otherwise. Yeah. And that's gratification because not only do they leave the show, actually, that's not true, we'll cover that. Not one of our guests of the shows that have aired have ever had anything negative to say. Yeah. They've all left big smiles. We take a picture at the end when we remember. Yeah. And everyone's always smiling, you know, there's always things. And I always make a point of saying, look, stay in touch if you need anything, let me know. Because I mean it. Yeah. You know, I'm interested in these people.
Yeah, I think I get a bit, I feel a bit weird when people come back. I mean, Joe says regularly on our post, legends. Yeah. The respect we seem to have gained from other people. Dave Beer's another one.
We're not fucking legends, you guys are.
Exactly.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I feel a bit weird with that little moniker, but I quite like it as well.
Well, look, I mean, let's look at that, right? Okay, we're not legends, we're just two people that are doing something.
I was going to get a t-shirt.
Oh, wait? Yeah, I'm a fucking legend, son. Right. I don't contemplate that because I don't want to. But somebody saying legends like that means that they respect us and what we're doing, which means we must be on the right path. Mm. Now, negative comments, we haven't had any.
No.
We've not had any internet trolling bullshit.
No.
Which I find astounding.
Yeah.
Because you look on the muddy mire of shit that is Facebook. You know, and someone released something about a rock star or an actor, and the vitriol in the comments is just horrendous. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I doubt if these famous people ever see it, but if they do, some of these actors run their own pages. Yeah. And, you know, somebody in a council flat, you know, in the middle of Edmonton has decided that what they're believing on the internet, what they're reading on the internet, they're believing. It's the real truth about who this person is. So then they go on some tirade and rampage. Yeah. And it's like, one, who's got time to do that? Because I don't.
No.
But two, it's horrifying. The hate just shows how shit human beings are.
Yeah, they largely are. Yeah.
Power through adversity, right, is what they're looking for. But what they're actually doing is power through hate. They feel like it empowers them, keyboard warriors.
Keyboard warriors, indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Bless them all. For they're all God's children, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right.
I actually said that. I didn't. Yeah, okay, move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Season 2, episode 1, Laura Drain.
Laura.
Yeah.
God, you've got to love Laura, haven't you? You've got
Yeah.
She's awesome. Right? She was a hopeless, right, drug and alcoholic woman. I know, I was there, and so was I. She has got a master's degree in psychotherapy, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
At this point, I should probably mention that Laura and I do a show together called Master and Student.
Yeah.
Psychotherapy. By the time you watch this, the first one, and possibly the first two, will be out. They're 20-minute sections about psychotherapy, mental health, learning about how to be what she is. She is an inspiration to anyone who is struggling with anything because she has risen to the top. Her boyfriend, her partner, whatever you have to call people, is Steve as well, who was a heroin, by his own admission, a hopeless heroin addict, who gave up on his life and is now working in Luton, yikes, at a homeless addicts charity. And, you know, he's fighting the fight. Yeah. And it's amazing that these people have turned themselves around. I feel slightly not worthy sometimes with these people because they see their lives as normal. I'm like, do you get it? Do you see what you've done?
Yeah. Well, because they've turned their life around, or because the work they're doing, or both.
Well, I mean, anyone can turn their life around, right? But look at the. Well, no, that's.
No, maybe they can't.
No, maybe they can't. But I don't know where I'm going. Right. The people that we talk to who have been addicts and obviously still are, right? All of them have found a direction, learnt everything they need to learn to function, and then carried on. Yeah. You know, Steve's done all the courses he needed to do to get where he was. Laura's got a master's in psychotherapy. Chris has got all of his, you know, directional thoughts, all of Carl Jung teachings, all of that. You know, what's that life cup thing? What was that called?
Life cup thing.
You know, where you take all the things you don't really need out of the cup.
Oh, that's the second stage of life.
Second stage of life. That's it. I'm old, remember? I can't remember these things.
Yeah, put the stuff in that's important.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, they're all doing stuff that is fulfilling to them. But it's all about helping people as well, which is...
If your agenda is to become a saint and influence people by your goodness, you're fucked, right? My interest in all of this is pretty selfish to start with. But luckily I'm selfish because I want to help people. So I'm selfish in the fact that I am doing these courses, I am learning, I am looking at jobs in charities, even though I didn't get it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to carry on, you know. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I'm realising now that my life is my own. I'm not beholden to other people. Where before, my business before with a business partner, basically I was, influenced way too much about what I had to do and where I had to go because it was his vision. Well, fuck him, it's my vision.
Absolutely.
Right. Next,
which segues very nicely into one of the comments on the Laura show, which in the middle of it says a key takeaway: remove trigger people from your life.
That's it. Do you know what? That's it. That's a beautiful thing to say.
It is.
Right, and I'll tell you why, right? When I was Jim Distortion, rock star in my head, I was also a huge cocaine addict. I hadn't started taking heroin then, right? I thought all these little sycophants around me were around me because of my engaging personality. What most of them wanted was the packet in my pocket. And also, to a certain degree, because when you're, and this sounds really wank, but there's no other way to say it, I was local famous. Everyone knew who Jim Distortion was. A bit wary of him because he was a big fat geezer who liked to lose his temper. Right? Well, that's great. What a great legacy to leave. So, then when I had to get clean, because I come out of hospital, I was homeless and all of that, I had to leave everyone behind. Good, bad, or indifferent. Anyone who triggered. The only person that I didn't have to leave behind was Alex, the hippie, because I knew that he would never do. If I was in the room, he wouldn't talk about drugs. He wouldn't do all this. Wouldn't do all that. I have subsequently recently been in a room where people were doing lines off mirrors and offering them to me, and I'm just thinking, do you know what, mate? I know how you're going to feel in 2 days' time. You're going to be crying in front of a television at a Hovis advert. I don't want any part of that anymore. It doesn't mean I'm judging them. I just feel a bit sorry for them because I know where that ends. And not everyone's an addict, can I say? Recreational drugs, they're not a good thing, obviously. But also, for a lot of people, it doesn't damage anyone. There's no problem with it. But if you are an addict, which I think you're probably born with, right? If you are an addict or you have addictive tendencies, taking a narcotic gives you a release. But then after that first line of coke or that first injection of heroin or first smoke of heroin, you're always chasing that high because it's never as good again. And you can't win that race. So there you go.
So there's a flip side to the removing trigger people from life, which is surrounding yourself with positive people. Both of those things I strongly recommend. And don't be trigger people. Remove trigger people from your life, but also removing toxic people from your life. People that drain you, whether they're family members, whether they're people that you think you're supposed to maintain a friendship with. That there is no need to do that. If it's damaging you and it's causing you to relive stuff from your childhood, relive stuff from your past, just get rid of them. They don't need to be in your life.
Right, the other thing is social parameters will state that if you know someone, you should entertain them, you should do this, you should do that. If that relationship is detrimental to your own health or just your own way of thinking, it doesn't have to be as deep as mental health. If they're negative to you and it affects you, move on. Sometimes you can't move on, right, because they're intrinsically involved in your life. So then what do? Well, you have to look at a solution for that, because staying somewhere where you're not respected and loved is not a good thing.
Yeah, and there's one thing I want to move on to from that, which is sometimes people detach from a friendship, a relationship, contact, in order for them to be able to process what's going on in their head, or just to get away from what they're processing. And experienced many times in recent years of people getting offended at people detaching from them. So if people don't engage for a while, my recommendation was, if someone's doing that to you, try not to approach them with anger.
Yeah, reach out. And
Either reach out and say,
okay?
"Sorry, have I upset you? Is there a problem? Is there something I can help you with?"
Yeah, I think you have to be. I think you have to be careful being on the back foot going into something like that. If you're apologising before you know what's happening.
Maybe.
Just ask the question,
but don't be aggressive.
Don't be aggressive. Yeah,
it's like, what's your problem?
What's your fucking problem? Yeah, I mean, don't do that. No. Also, if somebody's someone's pulled back from their situation. Sorry, I laughed because I couldn't think of the right word. Right? If somebody has pulled away and they're becoming more and more insular, someone needs to ask them a question.
Yeah.
Because it might not be that they're detaching for any other reason than they can't cope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kid gloves with stuff like that. Also, I do it. I say sorry fucking constantly. Like, so somebody else says something to me and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry about that. It's like, well, why the fuck are you sorry? You're not even involved in that situation. But sorry is a word that's overused, like most of them. But it just means you have empathy for them.
Yeah.
It means that you not necessarily understand, but you do feel sorry for them. You're like, oh man, I'm sorry you're going through that. Yeah. So don't let the common usage of words detract from what's meant behind them.
Yep, absolutely. Grief, there's a big show. Quite a few comments on the grief show.
Yeah, weirdly, hardly anyone watched it.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, get loads of comments, but nobody watched the show.
Yeah, I'll read one of them out from Andy Lewis. This one was amazing, guys. A few parts sounded far too familiar. Bagged of guilt, delayed grief, crying at Marley and me. Which is just,
I still can't believe my reaction to the end of that film.
No, well, my little doggy, she passed away very recently.
She did.
I've not lived with her for 8-9 years. And my daughter's devastated, obviously, because they've grown up with her. I know we've said it before, but I'll say it again. Anyone that says it's just a dog or it's just a cat, you're an arse.
I want to go and live somewhere away from the rest of humans.
Yeah. So, grief, whether it is pets, whether it is parents, whether it's children, always horrendous. And you're always going to go through it in some shape or form, sadly. And it will affect everyone differently. I mean, Chris Sibley commented on that. You don't necessarily burst into tears when somebody dies. I didn't with either of my parents. But subsequently, at random times, I did, and still happens now. Something will trigger a memory, and I will just sit there and I'll just burst into tears. Yeah,
I don't do that. When my mother died, it was a good thing for her. It was a good thing for her. It was a release. She was in pain. It was horrible. But I didn't cry when I went and got my armpit tattooed, which is a bit strange. But yeah, I mean, everyone copes with everything differently. There may be similar traits, but everyone copes differently. So when you're giving someone a big speech about how to cope with this and how to do that, remember that you're better off listening to what they're actually saying than giving your sage advice.
Yeah, God, yeah, absolutely. Going back to episode 2 of season 2, this was a second-hand comment from your father.
Right.
And he uses lots of long words in here that I may not even be able to pronounce properly, but I'll give it a go. Right, Dave, along with you and Lee as his interlocutor, hits so many nails on their heads that his reaction to his illness, because not distressing but a delight to watch and listen to. He's absolutely right about respecting the disease and taking it for what it is. There is more to fighting it than responding aggressively. I'm lucky to be in remission despite the lumps that still need to be taken off, something that is giving me a bad few days just now. But having a plan is necessary, and having counsellors too. I mean...
He's always had a fucking plan.
Let's talk about your dad, shall we? Because
okay.
The show, for us, the first show has just gone out, and I sat and watched it with awe, really. I just think he's an amazing guy, so engaging. And I said to you yesterday, I made a bit of a chat about it just before, and let's have that conversation now, shall we? It went in so many different directions. We've spoken about the loss of religion and therefore the loss of local community. And I said to you, if if your dad was my local clergyman, and I was going to be entertained by him, as I think I would be if he was giving a speech every Sunday in the pulpit, I would be more likely to be going to church. And I think if that was still there as someone to entertain you, and I make a point of using that word, to entertain you, but also to be there in your hour of need, it's horrendous that we don't have that anymore, isn't it?
Yeah. And I'll say what I said to you, pastoral care, right, is so much more important than God in an organised religion.
Yeah.
The reason why people related to Carl Lentz at Hillsong Church so much is because he was enthused, he was reassuring, he had a common touch with the people. My father was trusted, whether he was a chaplain at a school or he was in a parish. You know, he would spend like different times with different people. He said to me I don't know if he said it on the show, but he said to me the reason he went to the Ackland Hood pub to drink was because the farmers don't go to church, they're busy, they're doing all that, but if they needed help he could talk to them in the pub. You know, and I remember that. I remember being under a coat on a red velvet bench seat at the back going, I'd like to go home sometime this month. You know, but then you fall asleep, you know, you got your bottle of pop and your crisps are gone, you're under a coat and you wait until the man's done. Yeah. I think I have two things to say about my father. One, I wish my life had been different in as much as that I hadn't created so much propensity for shame. Not that they were that involved, because I kept my family separate. Yep. And two, I wish I'd listened to him more, because he knows what he's talking about. The guy's, you know, he's just on a base level. Everyone who meets my father thinks he's great. You did, George did, right? People, when he met some people in Hartford once in the White Hart 20 years ago, no, the White Horse in the Hartford 20 years ago, some people still ask how he is and refer to that 1 hour conversation in that pub they had with him. Yeah. This is a cliche, but if I'm half the man by the time I die that he is, that would be amazing. And it's that truth. And you know, I'm not an emotional human being, but I do feel this, you know, this font of knowledge, you know, coming, you know, as he is to later stages of life. He's still writing books, he's still a published author, he's doing that. And I said to him point blank, I said, well, because he said, oh, I don't get a lot of royalties and all that. I said, well, because it was never about money. It was about keeping you alive. The guy had had 2 strands of cancer. He's had things cut out of him. He's run about. He's doing all that, but he's still alive. He's still writing. He's still fighting. Yeah. But he respects the disease that Dave talks about in the neuroendocrine cancer. Yeah. I hate to say this, but we're way over time.
Oh. Okay, can we just cover the comment from the show with your dad?
Yeah.
I don't know if we need to find it. I don't know how quickly we can find it.
I can find it right now. Okay, this comment I read last night, right, on my dad's show. I will honestly tell you, I have not watched the show with my father yet.
Yep. It's good, watch it. It's really good.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I'm not watching it just because I want to watch it at the right time. Yeah. And I'm terrible for watching things, you know, just, you know, in the background while I'm working or whatever it is. Oh, God. Comments. Okay, so this is from Arnold Lad on YouTube. And it says, the class difference between father and son in this video is exceptionally strange. It's like a hod carrier has come to interview an Oxford Don. Now, some might see that as negative. I think that's the best comment I've read in years. They're bloody right. And I answered it and I said, look, you know, we've lived very different lives. Yeah. I left school, right, with no A-levels, all of the GCSEs, after being told I was an idiot and would never get anywhere. So really, I perpetuated that by not getting anywhere. Being a musician, but then saying that, I was a successful troubleshooter for Oddbins and a manager. I ran a very successful restaurant, and then that went wrong. You know, I've done good things, but then I decided that it would be better off to join a biker group and sell drugs and become a nightmare. Mm. And then that led to being a nightmare. Mm. So yeah, we're very different people. But if you look at the fundamental roots of us as humans, we're the same.
Yeah.
Once I learnt how to perceive myself in reality rather than the masks that I wear, then you can see the similarities. But what a fantastic thing to write.
Yeah.
Someone who's obviously watched it and gone, what?
Yeah, how did that happen?
What the hell? That's fantastic. That not vitriolic, but, you know, what's the word? That internal thought process that he had to, or she, to write that comment. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. And also, that's what the internet's about. That's not rude or wrong. It's like, I don't understand how you came from you. Yeah. And that's fantastic. Oh, I just stamped on the floor. There are other comments on that video too. And look, what I want to say about all this is, we are way into the second season, right? And we're almost, are we at the end of the second season?
Yeah.
This is the end of the second season, isn't it?
The start of the third.
This is just, oh right, this is
Ep2.
Oh, good God. Okay, look, I'm not, you know what I'm like, I don't know details. Right, but if you think about the reality of what we do, we come together once, twice a week sometimes to make these shows. We want you guys to be happy with it, but I'm not gonna settle to please everyone. If you've got something to say, and it's not just, you people are idiots, right? If you say I'm an idiot, then tell me why I am. And I'm not going to react violently or angrily. I'm going to go, okay, you've got a point, maybe. Let's look at that. Your interaction with 50 and coping means that, one, you're watching, two, that you care about your own self and maybe the people around you. And this gives us a platform, to selfishly try and help people. Because it gives us a great feeling of well-being, which is important in life, to try and reach out and help some people, shine a light on situations you might not know about. As you said, you've not been in a drug culture, you've got no idea about it. Well, you do now, in glorious technicolor. Yeah. All I want to say is thank you so much for watching us. We're not going anywhere. We're going to carry on making this until George tells us that we can't. Because at the end of the day, it's his ball and he'll bounce it. Please remember that if you need to buy coffee, madhousecoffee.uk will help you do that. Have a great week. See you later.